This is a work which I have done at Woodrow Wilson during 1 year. And it is research-based because, as everybody knows, we have too many experts on governance in Pakistan. But I wanted to test this empirically and also look at what has happened in other countries and what can we draw from our own circumstances. So my book on governing the ungovernable, a case study of Pakistan, would be launched at the Karachi Literary Festival on February 10th, 2018. So what I'm going to speak today is from that particular book. So you are privileged to have a preview of the book, and there are 18 chapters. It covers the economy, the politics, the society, the federal and provincial governments, local governments, private sector, military, judiciary, legislature, external actors, religious organizations, because so far everybody thinks it's only the government of the day which is responsible for governance. And my thesis is that it is the collective responsibilities of every one of these institutions and organizations which will have the effect on governance. If the society's value system is totally different, no government will be able to bring about the reforms which are deep-rooted and are going to make a difference. So we have to realize our own responsibilities wherever, whichever profession we are. Now, some of you are very young, so you might not even remember that Pakistan was one of the top 10 economic performers in the world among the developing countries for first 40 years of its existence. From 1950 to 1990, Pakistan's economic growth rate was 6 to 6.5% per annum, which very few countries were able to achieve. This was a country which was predicted by Life magazine in its cover story on January 1948 that the economic collapse of Pakistan is imminent, and within 6 months, Pakistan will fold itself into India. So this partition is totally artificial because this country doesn't have an economic base to remain independent. Since then, we had 5 major economic shocks during these 40 years period. The first shock was the demise of the founder of Pakistan, who had conceived of this country but was not able to translate that into the actual rules, regulations, constitution. So his vision was not translated into an institutionalized framework in which we could interpret as to what the future of Pakistan is. So today, you have as many interpretations about Jinnah's vision of Pakistan as many of us are present here. So that was a big shock, and that led to political instability. There were 11 governments which were formed between 1951 and 1958, and some of them were very short-lived. The second shock which came to, and at that time, we had to rehabilitate 8 million refugees who had migrated from India with a low economic base, which was 1/4 of Pakistan's population. Very few countries had successfully done that. And without any external help and assistance. At that time, foreign aid was not such a bigger issue. It came on later. But during 47, 48, 49, 50, there was no UN Refugee Rehabilitation Agency or World Food Program or anything which could support you. Then we had the third shock, which was the 1965 war. Our trajectory was really very fast moving, but we were shocked by this war, which led us back to a lower economic growth path. And then we had the separation of East Pakistan in 1971. And because of the politics of that time, a very charismatic individual became a very popular leader and got elected, but his economic agenda was very detrimental to the path which Pakistan had taken till 1960s. He nationalized all the large-scale industries, which was nascent. Pakistan had no industry at all. So instead of supporting and nurturing and facilitating this process, he nationalized all the commercial banks which were providing the financing. He took away the educational institutions, some of them doing extremely well. And that shock actually reversed our path or our trajectory of fast economic growth. Then the next shock came when Mr. Ziaul-Haq partnered with the United States in the ousting of the Soviet Union from Afghanistan. In the process, he brought in the religion, Kalashnikov, drugs, sectarianism as part of the culture and the social fabric of this country. And till today, we are paying a heavy price for that. The point I wanted to make is that despite all these major upheavals, we did extremely well. India was growing at 3% per annum, and most of you know this was called Hindu rate of growth. And their per capita income was way behind Pakistan. Our population difference was 7 to 8 times, but our economic size was 5 times India, and our social indicators were much ahead of them. Since 1990, we have become a laggard. Our growth rate has declined to 4.5% from 6.5%. Even Bangladesh today is way ahead. I'm not talking of India, but India is now 8 times the size of Pakistan's economy. From 5 times, it has become 8 times. And their per capita income is higher than ours. So my research tries to understand as to what are the factors which are responsible for this decline and the upsurge in the earlier period and the decline in the later period. So I looked at the literature, and there are 5 hypotheses which are advanced in order to explain Pakistan's economic conditions. The first is the security state hypothesis, which says that because of all the terrorism, the extremism, the insecurity, the investors, both Pakistanis and outsiders, do not really want to come and do business with Pakistan. There's insecurity of property, there is insecurity of person, of life. But I remind them that this terrorism started in 2001 September. But our decline started in 1990s, right? And during 2002 to 2007, we were growing again at 7% per annum. And there were 3 assaults and assassination attempts on the President of Pakistan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And the terrorism was at its peak. But Pakistan did progress at that time. It was the 3rd fastest growing country. Okay? So that explanation may be partially true, but it does not explain the total picture. The second hypothesis is that it is always the generous foreign aid. So whenever Pakistan gets foreign aid, the economy booms. And when the foreign aid declines, Pakistan gets bust. That is now almost an accepted proposition. I take the statistics and the data for 50s, 70s, 90s, when the economy was not in such good shape, and compares that with 60s, 80s, and 2000, 2007, when the economy was doing great. And I find that as far as the foreign flows are concerned, there's not much difference. During Mr. Bhutto's time, he shunned the Western aid, but he got $1.2 billion of